the Thai real estate market not as developed, so there is this perception among, especially the West, of not being so reliable or looking at short term. Maybe the materials are not as good or not as well managed. Is Do you see this as an obstacle that prevents the real estate market from truly appealing to global buyers?
I think that's a really interesting question because maybe from a developer's perspective, we see it quite differently, especially in the luxury segment. Our product, the materials, and the specifications that we choose to put into the projects are comparable to the likes of the top cities in the world. So we're using the same appliances, we're using the same materials and things like that. And that's due to how competitive this market really is. So every developer is trying to put the best product out there at the best price. And especially in the luxury segment, there is really no compromise because the customers are so educated. Even Thai buyers or foreign buyers, they know what specifications they're looking for in the building. They know what brand of kitchenware you're putting into the project. And there's so many other developers to compare with. So I think in that sense, it really maintains, for a luxury segment, the high level of quality that's being developed. But what we're building is something tangible. And I think as a developer, it's our responsibility to build something that really withholds time and maintains its value over time. So when I choose a plot of land to develop, I'm very particular on the locations I'm looking for and the kind of product that we can build and who's going to be living here. That's our way of, building sustainably. Obviously, for me personally, by knowing that we're building something that's tangible and here for at least the next few decades, it's really important to build something of quality.
Do you see this kind of trend of developing a more long-lasting condo? Is this the opportunity in the Bangkok market right now?
I sure hope so. I think for the sake of our skyline and for the sake of the customers who are buying the products as well, I really do think that this is how we should all be developing real estate.
People come here and they see, like, they buy a condo and they see it as a sunken cost, like they're never going to get out of it just because there's this issue of being oversupplied, or
Mhm.
it could be a bubble. The value depreciates because it's not really that well constructed.
Mhm. So it comes back to choosing the right property to invest in. You're not going to want to invest in a property where 1,000 of the same type of units. That might be a little bit harder to liquidate. It might be a little bit harder to find a renter for and things like that. But if you're choosing based on, location, um, definitely a project that is in a prime location holds and retains its value no matter what. So whether you're looking to make a capital gain by reselling it, or you're looking for renters to rent out your unit, things like that. I think if it's in a really key location, it has accessibility to transportation, and it's a good quality product, then no matter what, it's always a good investment.
Like, I'm actually curious about that. So
Mhm.
whether like, what segments of the market where have the prices have been appreciating, and what segments where the market's been stagnant or actually falling in terms of price?
Mhm. So it comes back to supply and demand. So any segment that has a big supply will be slower, more stagnant in growth. Any segment that has less supply will always see an increase in value, So if we're looking like as a very specific example, right? Condominiums by the river. There are only so many plots of land by the river. So no matter what, those guys will always kind of see an increase in value. Similarly to condominiums by the BTS, there are only so many parcels of land that are, you know, extremely close or walking distance to the BTS. So those projects, once they've sold out, there'll always still be a demand for those kind of locations.
And the Strand here is located very close to Thonglor BTS.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. And so how has been the price appreciation of this project since its inception?
So the price has consistently been going up. We actually, during the pandemic, maintained our pricing because I think we it's also part of our commitment, relationship with our customers who have bought at pre-sales that we weren't going to drop the pricing. And especially now that the project is complete, people have been seeing the real thing. They see the location, and they see the value in it. Uh, and in terms of the rental, the Strand has been extremely successful at renting out their units. So all our customers who have bought specifically to rent have been extremely happy. And I think that is due to a number of reasons. One is obviously the location and the proximity to the BTS, but also the fact that we have, dark, the all-day dining restaurant on the ground floor. We have a bar. We're close to some offices, things like that. So all of these reasons kind of appeal to the rental market as well, and it's been able to allow us to kind of see growth in value.
What really is the appeal of you mentioned the appeal displays dark and the attention to the materials that you have. And can you talk about this neighborhood here too?
Yeah, so I think Thonglor is a really cool neighborhood because traditionally it was a very residential neighborhood. So you've got a lot of like old families who have their houses and estates around here. And then you kind of see the next generations of those families kind of looking for a place to live in this area. So you've got kind of this old school residents who've always been around here and they've been able to kind of create kind of a community and a lifestyle in Thonglor. But then you've also got um, a lot of like foreigners coming in here as well. So you've got a lot of Japanese people, you've got a lot of Europeans who enjoy Thonglor for the F&B and the nightlife that it provides. So in some sense, this street has really become a melting pot. You've got like restaurants of every type of cuisine you can find in Thonglor.
That's where it is now.
Mhm.
Where do you see this neighborhood developing in the future?
I honestly think it's gonna get better and better. The government, they've put some special interest in this area. They say, the electrical wires will be going down soon,
Oh,
and so
really?
it'll be
We'll
more
see.
it'll be more of a walking street.
Yeah.
And I think there are plans for a Gray Line monorail to come through Tongla as well. So in terms of accessibility, it's also gonna get better terms of the F&B and the nightlife, it's always going to be OG around here. Like
Yeah.
this is where it is.
Uh-huh.
Any cool new bar will pop up around here first. And I think as the F&B scene flourishes in Thailand as a whole, we're going to see more and more really interesting gastronomy popping up in Thailand.
Okay. You spent a good chunk of your life abroad. Like you were raised in Hong Kong and you spent a lot of time in the US.
Mhm.
What were were there any like design concepts or philosophies from the West that you're bringing to internationalize this condo?
I think the materials that we choose and the aesthetic that we've decided to go with is quite international. But one thing that's quite interesting, which Thailand has the benefit of, is the luxury of space. So the cities that I grew up in, Hong Kong, New York, Philadelphia, Seoul, all these places, land is extremely expensive compared to what we have here in Thailand. So condominiums are much smaller, they're much more compact, and there's a bigger focus on, oh, how can one thing do multiple things? How can a kitchen also be um, a place to raise your kids and do all sorts of things, be a place to eat breakfast and blah blah blah. So here we have the luxury of space. Our units are more generous, I would say, than what I grew up with in tighter, more compact cities. And with that luxury of space, you're able to create better floor plans.
Mm.
So you're better able to space where furniture goes, where cabinets can, fit into an area without kind of sticking out, things like that. So in that sense, developing in Thailand was was quite different from what I had expected or what I grew up with.
Okay. So maybe like we can quickly go down the list of like, so okay, what's the size of your one bedroom, two bedroom, three penthouses or what?
Yeah, so our one bedrooms on average is about 50 square meters, our two bedrooms about 90 square meters, and our penthouses, which are three bedrooms, are 184 square meters. So that's the general range of our unit sizes. It's like plus or minus five from what I've stated, but roughly.
Okay. Is that kind of a standard for condos now, or are you really Oh yeah, because you also have much less units too. There's only 188 units in
Yes.
here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, for a project that is next to the BTS, I would say that we are kind of a smaller scale but larger size. So we've we really wanted to make the units livable. You know, we didn't want them to be so small.
Matchboxes.
Yeah, I mean also like they're not that renter friendly
Of course.
and it's really hard to kind of use the space and put furniture properly and stuff like that. So I think we tried to balance with not being too small but also being a size where the pricing will not be too high.
Okay. And up till now, who have the buyers been in terms of their demographics and what have been their motivation?
Hmm. So I think definitely during the pandemic, we saw that it was a real demand kind of market. So people who, were truly looking to move out of their parents' house, or people who were ready to purchase a condominium, especially when there were discounts going on. They thought that it was a good opportunity to buy. Um, and I think that's also the reason why the luxury segment have been able to kind of maintain their customer base because they're really tapping on a real demand where people are not just buying out of, investment purposes, but to live in, to have that luxury of space and things like that, or to be purchasing it for their children.
Are these foreign or Thai mostly?
During the pandemic, most of our customers, at least, have been Thai. I think that's due to the fact that people weren't able to travel and actually see the product itself. When we're talking about a luxury segment, a lot of our customers want to see the real thing. They don't trust, just looking at a brochure or on the website, which I think that's fair. So, yes.
What has been some feedback you've gotten from buyers or people that have come and looked at it?
Um, Maybe I'm not too good at marketing, but a lot of people they say that what they see on the internet or what they see on our website, the real thing is way nicer. So
I think so.
yeah, yeah, and I don't know whether it's because it's hard to capture something that is more texture related. Like we don't have a lot of colors or things that you can really.
Like focal points or gimmicks to really focus in on.
Right, but then when you come to the actual project, you can kind of feel the different textures and sort of the heart that's put into the development and the quality that we give.
I can see that because it's hard from afar to really see like how solid something looks or the texture, right? Like texture is very important, but
It
you don't
is.
necessarily because people, a lot of them, they're looking at it from their phone, right? And it's hard to see that.
Exactly.
But that being said, like this project, at least among the English-speaking crowd, it's not as well known as maybe some on the riverside and all like that.
Mhm.
So yeah, it might be a marketing issue or something.
I think also, during the pandemic, which was when we're launching the project, we were doing in construction during that period of time, was a time where we didn't do too much marketing to the foreign buyers
Uh-huh.
because we just knew that it was unrealistic for
That's
them
true.
to make, a purchasing decision of this value through the internet. Like that's
True,
just not
yeah.
fair for the customer either. They need to really come see it themselves.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why we think it's a good time now to kind of reach out to those
Yeah.
markets and kind of introduce our brand again,
Yeah.
and invite them to come see it. I think especially people love our rooftop. It's got kind of a very resort feel, even though we're right smack in the front of Thonglor Road and it's very busy down there. But once you get upstairs to the 27th floor, there is this feeling of peace and calm, and you kind of just feel like you're somewhere else. You've been transported or
Mm,
transplanted somewhere else. and that was intentional. We wanted to kind of create that divide, you know, between being in the city and also having your own kind of retreat at home up here.
What are some things that people have been very impressed by that maybe surprised even you?
I was really surprised with the low defects that we have in the units. So a lot of the time, everybody warned me in the industry that transferring is the toughest part of the job. You know, building it, designing it, all of that is fun and games. But when it comes to actually having people pay up for the units and when they're coming to inspect the units, that is the biggest challenge because they're gonna find all sorts of defects in your, you know, in your unit. But we've been extremely lucky, and I don't know if it's because I'm very much involved in
Lucky or prudence? Probably.
no, I think it's because I'm so heavily involved in the
Yeah.
QC process. So I go around inspecting every unit before it goes to the customer. And before we lock the doors and then it gets sealed off and then, you know, we don't touch it anymore. So every customer who have been transferring the units and have come to look at their unit that they purchased are extremely happy with the quality. And most of the time they just move right in. Like they don't have to do anything much else to it.
Nice. As a real estate developer, you're obviously want to sell brand new condos,
Mhm.
right? And one comment I get a lot from the audience is why buy a new and pricey condo when I can just buy from the secondhand market, a fixer upper? So what is the appeal, in your opinion, of new buying a brand new condo?
So I think, you know, the culture of flipping apartments is one that we see a lot in the Western world, you know, in America and Europe and things like that. The issue here is that flipping comes with a lot of headaches, because you're working with contractors, you know, you're dealing with designers, and you're doing that all by yourself. Um, it can get a little tricky and it can be time consuming, and at the end it could cost a lot as well. So in some sense, buying a ready built or a new condominium provides you kind of with that convenience of being able to just move in right away and rest assured that it's of good quality. I think the other thing also is that the facilities of a new project are going to be much more comprehensive and well maintained, well kept than say an older development. And this also comes back to what I'm saying, where developers were so crazy competitive, you know, like it's such a cutthroat industry and everyone's trying to build the best product. Everyone's trying to put the most facilities that we can, you know, have like a putting green here.
Do you?
Yeah, we do on the rooftop.
That's awesome. We'll check it out later.
Yeah. So because you know, I like to call them friendly competition,
Yeah,
but it really does make us try to do the best that we can and try to have an edge above the others. And at the end of the day, that just benefits the person who lives here.
true. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess my insight into this is that buying a brand new condo, it's like buying something that only you have owned. It's like your own precious space. It's like a blank canvas that you can put your life's work and artistic expression into it. Like it's never been owned by someone else. It's like a unique piece in the city that's like truly yours.
Yeah. To be honest, I feel like that's the case for any first real estate purchase. Is something that, you know, you've saved money for. And, you know, buying a home is something so inherently human about it. You know, having a roof over your head for your family and things like that is just so human. And to be able to do that with any place, whether it's an old place or a new place, is it's a really valuable experience, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how does the Strand help fulfill that dream of having a home?
So, I think it comes back to why the Strand was built. I actually grew up abroad and I spent most of my life outside of Thailand. And when I came back here, I saw that there was an opportunity to build more than just a condominium, but something that had a sense of community, something that, you know, a place where you kind of can know your neighbors, as opposed to just sneak up to your own roof, right? And that's why we have the Strand Park in the front, and that's why we put the F&Bs and the bars in the building as well, because we really did want to curate a place that people felt comfortable to interact with each other. So I guess in one aspect that's quite unique. Also the different things kind of we put into the project. We tried to make it both elderly friendly and children friendly and pet friendly. So we've incorporated a lot of universal design for handicap and things like that in the building. We've also put, a really fun playroom for the kids, a tutor room if parents need to like take a Zoom conference or if they want to have their kids take a lesson or something like that. And then we put in like a putting green, like I've mentioned, or our gym and things like that. So we've really tried to kind of cater to all demographics and not just like, oh, new generation people or older generation people, We try to keep it quite universal, the project, and also the way that the mood and tone, the materials that we've chosen is neither too flashy, too dark, or too light. It's kind of quite a neutral palette. And that's because we see that every homeowner has their own personality and everyone has something to put into their own units. So we wanted to really be a blank canvas for you to kind of decorate however you want. And, rest assured it'll match with the stuff that you're buying.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so I think that's quite important, especially if you want a project that's long lasting. If I do something that's overly trendy this year,
yeah,
maybe 5 years from now it's gonna look a little passe, and we don't really want to do that.
yeah. What do you think would catches their attention to make them really consider this place?
It's tough because I intentionally designed this to be subtle. This building is in itself quite quietly confident. We're in an extremely visible location, yet we're not really overly flashy about
Hmm.
who we are and what we have to offer. Um, so maybe it's just because of how I am personally, and it reflects into the project. But I'm hoping that people who pass by or see the building naturally feel curious, to come in and see what's in here. Because what you see at the surface or, on the front of the street of Thonglor is quite different from what we have to offer inside.
And another like insight I've gleaned from this interview right now is actually this is a very personalized project because a lot of you see maybe other projects, it's very, I mean, there's a whole huge board and they're a large company and there's a bunch of volume. But you've basically, this has been your full-time focus, this condo right here, putting your own like what you've learned throughout the years and like your own expression to this place and like you said your own QC.
Yeah. It's extremely personal to me actually. Starting this company and entering the industry was not because it was not really because I wanted to like make a lot of money or anything, but it was because I just love real estate. Ever since I was little, I grew up, in so many places and I moved around in so many houses. So a sense of home is extremely important to me. And if I'm able to do that as a career, then that's awesome. So I've really kind of taken that inspiration from my life and my own, personal interests and kind of build a career around that and build a product which I think quite reflects the different thoughts and ideas I have for what makes a good home.